remember, like, going into the 90s, like, there's some movies that I would recommend you leave in the past, the movies with cops. So you had one cop who was playing by the rules, ready for retirement, the other one who was rogue, took the badge. Maverick, he's a maverick. He don't play by the rules. He's dangerous. He hangs on to 18-wheelers going, 90 miles per hour by the side and takes a fleet of army down, a whole fleet. Just talking about it, I get blurry. That's how bad it gets. No, there's no rules. Once you take the badge off, anything goes. It's full on, too, when the good cop, who played by the rules his whole career, goes,
"All right, I'm taking my badge off, too, for this one time."
And, you think about those films we grew up on, is the cop movies, lawyer TV shows, the hospital shows. You would think that the only jobs in America are cops, lawyers, and some gig at the hospital. Late Night Thoughts. It's back. Real Media's original podcast about everything, absolutely nothing at all. Those moments of weakness out the window. Creativity enters. We have a huge bowl of creativity tonight as we surf the universe, domestic, foreign. As the kaleidoscope in the sky is more than just Lucy, I must say. So thrilled. Ready for this? Be ready for this. Okay. Late Night Thoughts. Late Night Thoughts. With yours truly, Dean Ryan here. Coming at you like a hurricane out of Memphis, who's late for a wedding reception. Well, that's how I feel. And that's how it is here tonight. Is we're going with the episode title of Rabbit Holes and Dirty Moles. And I don't mean the dermatologist themed type of event you might think, but I'll explain here in a minute. Welcome everybody to Late Night Thoughts. It is your thoughtful host here tonight, Dean Ryan, who is really feeling, well, I'm disappearing like Houdini, and that's just the first trick. But tonight we have an incredible show, as we have the investigative reporter and author Susan Bradford here with us tonight. I'll tell you about her in a minute, but I've been looking forward to this. But, as we get into some of the some of the theatrics here in the world here with tonight's guest. It's rabbit holes and dirty moles. And let me explain that for a minute. For all you skeptics, critics, and non-believers, and the title that is, we're now entering the new vortex. We're now entering a new vortex here of rabbit holes, and the deeper you look, the more dark it is, and just the ground beneath us from what the Six Underground has told us. But how far does the deep rabbit holes go? For instance, we've been 3 years now. 3 years we've been on Rumble. In the last 2 years, the growth has been frozen at 2.7 thousand, and I could not understand why. Rumble is supposed to be the free, fair, and very understanding platform, and there is a deep rabbit hole with that. And the deeper you look, and certainly my colleague Jim Fetzer has he's stumbled upon a few rabbit holes, and I'm not even sure he noticed. He just steps in it and then just keeps going like Walter Payton on the Chicago Bears. So we're going to talk about some of that stuff tonight. But hopefully the members here, this is members only, hopefully the members have really got a good dose this past week of just what it takes to do my old radio chops here, as we have been struck without a proper show like we used to, but that's changing. And I must admit, as kind of stunted as I feel in handicap without all my tools and what have you, when you have nothing else to rely on except for your theater of the mind, your words, your verbiage, you'd think it'd be easier. It'd be easier, but it's not in the sense that you want to throw so much more into it. It's almost like you're stuck playing like acoustic guitar, but you're like, no, I want the Fender electric guitar, and I just want to shred on this solo right now, but you can't, and you're not bandmates. So that's what if you understand that analogy. Anyways, I do understand too that it is baseball season right now, and baseball playoffs, and some people have mentioned, well, why schedule a show around that? And I'm thinking, we're kind of seeing the last leg of sports too, if I might add. There's a rabbit hole too, because we're coming to a point where banks are about to shut down. I got the call yesterday from certain people, and there's a lot of bank, private foreclosures happening right now. And the banks are concerned about the people making some bank runs and pulling all their money out. And if and when that happens, just remember all those billions of dollars we could have created, or dispersed to help the homeless, to help people who are, eye high in medical bills. Just remember that that good spent money is now in the hands of blowhard Zelensky. That's right. Ukraine's favorite drag queen. Just remember, he is the one we're taking care of like a little baby. Just from friendly reminder to you. Anyways, let's just get right into it. I want to introduce our next guest here. This is a woman who is very thoughtful, and I thought, what a better way to have someone join me than to have her on Late Night Thoughts. And we'll casually interview her here in a second, but let me tell you who she is. Well, Susan Bradford, according to my studies, well, she's an author and investigative journalist. She's written a number of books about the deep state. Some of them you might have read or heard about. She's written the incredible book Royal Blood Lies, The Saudi Swindle, and The Shadow Dragon. The Shadow Dragon, yeah, that's right. And we're going to ask her about those as well. She has a new book coming out, and which we really want to ask her about is it's called the Black Rock Bamboozle. It's a huge revelation of history of a very dark, deep state entrenched group called BlackRock. And I have a lot of questions about that just myself. And it really gets into the networks, the strategies behind one of the world's huge, biggest, largest asset management companies. We're going to ask her about that. And she has some solutions, which is great. I'm a big remedies guy, and I'm also a big problem guy. So there you have that one. But you might have seen her. She's been on Fox and Friends over there at the Fox News Channel, Voice America, CBS. And she went to UC Irvine right here in Orange County. I mean, so that I got to ask her about. So that's very interesting. And more importantly, too, she is a major colleague of the great Jim Fetzer, one of his biggest, brightest researchers, and has went into all his endeavors, including, but not limited to, Sandy Hook. That's right. You might have heard about that one. Yeah, so we'll ask her about that. But let's welcome to the dais here the very, very, very competent, the very brilliant, resilient Susan Bradford. Susan, welcome. Well, I think, excuse me, I don't have all my asset managements. Anyways, welcome to the stage, Susan Bradford. There you are.
Thank you.
Hello, Susan.
Hello, Dean. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, right off the bat, I must say, you went to UC Irvine. That is just down the road from me, where I am right now, about 20 minutes from here. How was that experience?
I loved Irvine. I participated in the GPEX program, which was phenomenal. But there was one incident that really stood out to me, and I think it's probably relevant today, and that was that there were various groups from Mesha. I don't know if you remember Mesha, or no, the La Raza, whereby there were Hispanic groups that appeared on campus demanding that California and the rest of the Western states be delivered to Mexico. And the students who participated in that program got free full ride scholarships to Harvard when they graduated, and most of them spoke Pidgin English. They're fresh across the border. So I think that the some of the foundational elements that California is experiencing today were laid back in the 1980s when I was an undergraduate there.
Interesting. So yeah, I'm very familiar with La Raza, and a lot of that came through Cesar Chavez. You might recall the story of him, which what was that, like early 80s, I want to say. So somewhere around there, but it came through that. There was a communist, that's the communist outfit they use. They put a lot of their candidates in city council. The same thing, it seems to be happening over there in El Paso, Texas, similar groups. However, UC Irvine, since your stature there, has really gone the way of, I would say, the carnitas, and has turned all the way to the wok, as UC Irvine's now known as the Chinese playground. Huge Chinese influence, huge Chinese money. And I think UC Irvine is like almost 90% Asian these days.
Back then, it was close to about 30 to 40% Asian. So
well, there you go. So the Pidgin English never really went away. So that's the one thing that remains. So that's interesting that, yeah, I used to, Irvine, we went to the Irvine City Plaza or whatever, that hangout during high school. So that's, yeah, it was a very small world, isn't it? But you have since moved on. Yes, you since moved on from that, and you've become you were on Fox and all these different places as an author, and so you're a writer. And were you a writer first before an investigative journalist? Just kind of how it all came about.
That's a very interesting question. I think I've always been a writer, or at least once I learned how to write. I've been a writer, but I moved into writing after after leaving the Voice of America, I worked as a speechwriter for the Korean ambassador. And then I jumped into the Abramoff investigation. So the Abramoff
Interesting.
investigation, that allowed
Wow.
me deep access into the deep state. And from there, I wanted to keep digging. And so I continued to write books, kind of exploring where the networks ultimately led.
Interesting. I could tell you're a novelist too, the way you write. That's very much because I was a newspaper editor for a long time, and then I've come from the world of like the magazine and the headline.
The long
So
form.
it's quite different but similar. Um,
Yeah.
So but I never read the Hardy Boys or anything, so I never could get that novelist in me quite exactly. But okay, well, go ahead, please.
No, go ahead.
So you talked. Let's kind of get into some of. You wrote some incredible books, and we don't have to go over every one of them. But I think some of these before we get into your new book, and of course we'll talk about how we know each other and all that stuff. But you talked about royal blood lies and the Saudi swindle and the Shadow Dragon. I'm imagining the Shadow Dragon is something you discovered while at UC Irvine with all the fresh off the boat, as you described.
um, the Shadow Dragon I actually uncovered while working on the Abramoff investigation. Um, Specifically, that the deep state was forging its inroads into the United States through the back door of the Indian tribes. And specifically, I remember that the Carlyle Group was created through the Alaskan Native corporations, by way of exploiting, tax loopholes that were available for the Eskimos. And I found a
Wow,
lot of
Susan,
interesting connections.
that is so crazy you said that. It's just you just shocked me because this was one of the main stories I had 5 years ago. That
Really?
the elders have been the Native American elders have been selling out their own people, the Navajo
Yes, they have.
Nation. And they've done it with Obama, and they've gone even further. So they're scrubbing the CIA money at the casinos, but
Mhm.
also they're signing UN treaties for their reservations to allow UN troops to be stationed there at certain junctures in the future. And the Carlyle Group, as you mentioned, former management of the Bin Ladens, well, they currently,
Mhm.
guess who they manage now? Taylor Swift.
Oh, yes. All her entire, I think they own her trademarks, if I'm not mistaken, or they own her book of business, like her entire
Yes.
brand, her brand.
Yeah, they decide who she dates, who she marries, not her. It's all fairy tales.
Mhm.
But it
Correct.
just when you said that, my hair was standing up. But please go further because this coincides with a lot of what of the work I've done.
Oh, very interesting. Well, the Indian tribes were the federally recognized Indian tribes were established by the Rockefellers, specifically to corral the natives onto land that was rich in natural resources and minerals. From the very beginning, they planned to usher European social democracy into the U.S. through the back door of the Indian tribes, and to establish closed knit, like taxpayer funded markets from which they could then establish monopolies. So the Indian tribes were a very key component to this agenda. Most of the casinos are taxpayer funded, and they are used to capitalize big business. The tribal councils are generally controlled by the corporations and energy companies, not by the Indians themselves. And they serve as like a liaison between the federal government and corporate America, to siphon taxpayer money, which they then, they have a number of causes that they generate money from, but much of that money is redistributed back to corporate America.
That's pretty wild. And one of the biggest epidemics in the Native American category, and
Mhm.
me being a Sioux Indian, these really hit home. I just never really explored too
Interesting.
much with my with my own ignorance, but what I've learned is Oklahoma has a serious problem with the Native American tribes as the most missing persons in the country, but even further, the most missing persons who are unidentified and just found, with no trace, because they're kidnapping Native American women right now in droves on reservations, and the regular city cops, they can't respond. They're not allowed to go on reservations, so it's easy pickings. They have like a Mayberry cop, Barney Fife, and so that there's a lot of problems on the Native American tribes, and Obama was very complicit in a lot of those
If you can
nefarious actions.
imagine the great replacement happening in the wider United States within Indian tribes, the tribes themselves are being flooded with individuals who are not native, and these individuals are taking the entitlements that are owed to the Indians, and they're actually pushing the Indians off the reservation. Now, I was not aware that they were actually kidnapping their people, and that's quite alarming. But I know that the Bill of Rights, I believe, are not used in the Indian tribe. They're not upheld. So I know there are a lot of human rights violations and laws that are violated in which the government cannot prosecute.
Yeah, and many of the homes too in
Mhm.
Oklahoma, as we found out in one of our 6 underground episodes, they'll have a underground opening in the floor.
Mhm.
So that's how people were sneaking in. So this is really interesting.
Horrible.
And you mentioned Abram. I can't
Abramoff?
pronounce his name. Say again.
Uh, Abramoff?
Yes, Jack
Mhm.
Abramoff. Which that's a name I heard a lot around the 9/11 era.
Mhm.
Whatever happened to him, and kind of what was his significance too, just for those who may not recall or maybe need a refreshment of recollection.
So he at the time he was one of the most well-connected lobbyists within the Bush administration. He was accused of essentially buying Congress. Essentially, he was one of the most influential tribal casino lobbyists. And of course, John McCain had signed a campaign finance bill into law that allowed Indian tribes to give unlimited campaign contributions to Congress. So that put him in an incredibly influential position. He was essentially able to buy off the entire federal government through his influence and through redirecting tribal wealth into the political coffers. So he was I guess he was prosecuted over a casino deal that went bad in Florida, and over corrupting the political figures and ripping off Indian tribes. But what I had discovered through my research is that he was falsely accused, and what I mean by that is that he was accused by his co-conspirators who had weaponized the federal government against him to cover up greater crimes that had taken place, and the Trumps and the Clintons, Microsoft, and a number of other parties are complicit in that. In terms of what happened to him, after I brought forth my discoveries of how he had been set up, how the federal government had kind of invented evidence against him, and denied him his denied exculpatory evidence and so forth. He used that evidence to secure leniency from the Department of Justice, and then he went on to become a lobbyist and to return to lobbying the Trump administration. And of course, soon after, he was prosecuted again under numerous crimes, one involving a crypto deal. It was the anti I think it was anti money laundering Bitcoin, and the other was he was lobbying on behalf of cannabis. But he ended up being prosecuted again. This time he dodged prison. but I think he's been banned from this, securities and from lobbying.
Yeah, that's a name I haven't heard in ages. It's so interesting to hear that once again. So let's talk about. You have a new book coming out. I really would love to get into this. It's BlackRock, and BlackRock, and who I believe is connected to Vanguard, and you can correct me on the record, but BlackRock is literally buying up everything in record, I believe, and to the even to the point where the Panama Canal is now being integrated with BlackRock, and just when you thought things couldn't get any just greater for them, well, now I believe it's Larry Finkel. Yeah, I thought you're.
There you go.
You think? You think?
Yeah,
Larry Fink.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, you think? No, he's now the head of the WEF. How fitting. So, who is BlackRock? What is their motive? What's their objective? What's their motive? And does the American president or any Congress representative have any power whatsoever to stop them?
I would say to your last question, no, but the entire system has been created illegitimately, and therefore I think if you go back to the foundational elements of how they set this up, you can unravel it. So I think that will come down to we the people. I don't think Congress will do anything since most parties have been bought off. But in terms of BlackRock, BlackRock was spun off from Blackstone, and the founder of Blackstone is co-founder is Peter Peterson. Now, Peterson was the Commerce Secretary in the Nixon administration, who was the leading force behind the launch of the fiat currency. So through that fiat currency, the federal government was able to print unlimited amounts of money that enabled I refer to Fink as the head of a crime syndicate, enabled them to buy up America's assets. And when Larry Fink was at First Boston, he kind of invented the mortgage-backed securities that were then used to kind of rig the market, the wider market, and what they're doing is they're selling America out to foreign interests. So they're securitizing everything. So for example, they'll take your mortgage, they'll bundle it into a security, and then they will sell that debt to a foreign interest, China, Saudi Arabia, and to other investors. And all of these securities are backed by the federal government. They're doing this with student debt, with electricity bills. Debt is being kind of securitized and moved overseas. Their ultimate objective is to essentially buy up the world. They want the rest of the people to be kind of like a renter class, where they will monetize every thought, every deed, every action, every product, every service, so that you'll continue to pay into their system while they passively, acquire the profits, from that system. But they actually set it up from the very beginning. Blackstone is one of the greatest beneficiaries of the fiat dollar, and so essentially they've exploited the fiat dollar to enrich a very small select group of people whose power ultimately traces back to the City of London.
Okay, so yeah, that goes back to the Rothschild, and it's so interesting that their original name was Blackstone, and ultimately BlackRock. But when you get into that, what is Blackstone? Well, what is black, and what is authoritarianism, and it all kind of traces back to the planet of Saturn. Which is what a lot of the elite kind of worship. It's a Luciferian kind of a craze they have over it, hence why, judges, cops, everyone wears black, referees, umpires. So there's that connection to it in the esoteric world. Not that I'm an expert, but well, tonight I am, I guess, I feel. Yes.
There's that, and there's also the Black Rock is also a mythical, could be mythical or real, rock within the Arctic that kind of accesses secret technologies and tunnels under the world. There's that
kind of like Pebble Rock, if you recall that.
I'm not familiar with Pebble Rock.
Yeah, another one too. And this is a lot of this is coming from the Black Rock Bamboozle, your new book coming out, which I believe is very soon. And please let us know when it is. We'd love to put it in our store and give it to some of our members. But so we're talking about the Black Rock, and now who is Vanguard and what is their connection? Because BlackRock is a financial management firm. I would say almost maybe similar to the Carlyle Group. But what is Vanguard exactly, and what is their connection to the BlackRockers?
Now, my main focus was on BlackRock. I believe that they own each other, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Vanguard is owned by some of the wider Bush financial interests, but they kind of own stakes within each other. So you have State Street, Vanguard, and BlackRock, really owning their own, owning the investments and the stock within each other's companies. So you have like a monolith of financial interests kind of coalescing, around each other. But for the very elite. But it's also a financial management firm.
So yeah, it's all these financial management firms. It's so crazy to think that these are the people who are sinking us and selling us out. And there's so much complicity, I guess, as you mentioned, with Donald Trump in a lot of these endeavors. I mean, it's one thing to get the Panama Canal back from China, but in the same breath, then to just divvy it up and toss it over to BlackRock. It's got to feel like a betrayal, so much that I think that a lot of, or I'm not even sure a lot of, but some people are just probably not even registering just how complicit this current administration is with a lot of what we're talking about here.
It's far worse than you realize. Donald Trump is attempting to create or to make himself the shadow central banker, such that when he leaves the administration, he's going to be in charge of, he's already making a great, a lot of money through stable coins, but he's going to be in charge of collecting the revenue from securities. He'll be playing the role of the Federal Reserve, and this was based on the Genius Act, which was just passed, and there are two more pieces of legislation working their way through Congress that, if they are passed, will essentially allow Trump and the Trump family to potentially become the wealthiest family in the world through stablecoin. And if they are able to drive up, the value of the stablecoin to such an extent, they will be in a position to kind of buy up all the real estate and buy up all the assets and infrastructure. And I think that's one of their ultimate, one of the objectives of the elite is they want to, to kind of acquire and own everything. And I think that, Trump is a figurehead. So it wouldn't really be the Trump family owning these assets. It's these, the syndicate works through them, but right now they're trying to take the control of finances and money printing and debt away from the Federal Reserve and into private hands.
Yeah, so there it is. Yeah, they're taking to private hands, and it's hard to imagine because we were set up on a constitutional foundation that the Congress, the representation of the people, they're supposed to be in charge of the purse, are they not? They're supposed to be the ones who are running the purse strings, not a private, shadowy group.
and that's where I think we need to reach what we need to return to. So we have a lot of so-called libertarians who are saying, okay, we know that the Federal Reserve is corrupt. We know that they have kind of bankrupted the nation and enriched themselves through their own policies. And they say, okay, we've created the problem. Now, what's the solution? The solution is to move money into cryptos, and away from federal regulation. But I think we need to get back to having our republic restored. We need to have our checks and balances restored and legitimacy restored to the federal government. And I think that the minting of money needs to return to its constitutionally prescribed role within Congress. I think that's absolutely correct.
I'm all for bartering. That's the next phase. Just I'll trade you 3 cows for some of your tomatoes. The old days, and that's kind of being practiced in the speaking of the libertarian, in the kind of the anarchist communities, and having lived in one briefly, which was pretty wild. I learned a lot of these new things. They call it agorist. That's what I.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. It's very,
very interesting. Yes. So this is crazy. Now, as you're going down these avenues, and it seems to be that a lot of people who are the big researchers out there that are getting the headline, marquee positioning in some of these big shows, and one of them, Whitney Webb, and probably others too, but a lot of these people could very well be limited hangouts. Has that ever crossed your mind? Because and stealing other people's work. So do you see that in your industry as a investigative journalist and researcher, that you're amongst limited hangouts, which are pretty much I hate to use this term, but the shills out there?
I think there are a lot of them. If you're a commentator, I think you can be forgiven for being a limited hangout, because you're repeating or you're analyzing what you've read. But for researchers who should, for researchers who should be experts in their field, I think repeating what the conventional wisdom is, or just not knowing, not having a full knowledge of your beat, is unforgivable. And I know a lot of conservatives give Russia a pass. That they hold Russia up as the savior of the world. It's a Christian nation, and the fact of the matter is that, and I know a lot of conservative pundits defer to Russia, and they think that they're our ally. But the fact is that after the Cold War, Larry Summers, as an economist, for the World Bank, helped kind of he instituted a shock therapy that enabled the Russian oligarchs, the criminal Russian oligarchs, to take over the Russian government and to actually commandeer Russia's assets. Putin was installed by Larry Summers, and Putin is a front man for, or he was before he died, before Jacob Rothschild died, but he was the front man for Jacob Rothschild. So Putin, or the Russian oligarchs, who are billionaires, hold Russia's assets for Putin, and Putin in turn holds the wealth for Jacob Rothschild. So you have a transnational crime syndicate centered around the Kremlin, and at the same time you have conservative pundits telling us that they're the savior. They're actually part of the problem, and I think that a lot of journalists, I think that they kind of they don't provide the full picture. They don't go deep enough, and they keep you. I think they report news in such a way that you're not able to forge solutions, because you only know part of the picture.
Let's go further. Let me, if we can, I want to expand on that, because I literally just did a show last night, and I was kind of offering a thesis of what's happening here. Is you say a lot of conservative pundits are praising Russia. I would say you're correct. In the alternative media, the conservative types are in the mainstream, it's still, people like the Dan Bonginos, who we'll definitely talk about down the next half here. But a lot of them are still, Putin's bad. He's a bad guy. I see what's happening right now. And that's stunning what you said, his connection to the Rothschilds, who seem to be in everybody's piggy bank and pockets around the world. But, why is there a concerted effort to continuously demonize Russia? I think something that we saw begin in the Obama administration and definitely accelerated once Trump got in there. What is that all about? Or is this more of the Rothschild International Kabuki Theater House that's now playing?
I think it's Kabuki theater because if you follow, if you kind of trace the money back to its source, and you follow how these different governments have been set up, really since the 1800s, when the Rothschilds took over the British crown. You will see that the Rothschilds were behind, they were financing, along with Wall Street, the communist revolutions and the wars and so forth. And so the Rothschilds and their cohorts overthrew legitimate governments around the world and then installed puppet regimes. So, China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, England, the United States were all controlled by the same hand. And so when they have, one country fighting against another country, they're using, that dispute to maybe generate, defense contracts, or to divert, attention from something else. But I think, as you said, it's kabuki theater.
Okay, so that's interesting because a lot of historians miss kind of the ball when we relook at the Cold War, which was a major arms race for the greater part of a decade, which was really set into place with the usage of the hydrogen bomb, which was petitioned from Einstein and other factors like that to Truman, and certainly the case now. I was made aware that by 2024 and onward, we would be in what has been described to me as a Orson Welles War of the Worlds, wars, rumors of wars, featuring a major alien scare. And so far, we've experienced all of that. The Ukrainian war has been cut using CGI and old footage, which, you have to question, is it CGI they're using, or is it just a lazy editor for CNN that just doesn't want to use new footage? So we're at that place now. But there's also something new on the horizon, and sticking with Russia is now there's a tripling down of NATO and EU for what many have described as for their own survival to continue a war.
Correct.
And now we have Trump now talking about giving long-range Tomahawks missiles to, blowhard Zelensky, which makes absolutely no sense outside of the fact that Israel wants the war with Iran, but they can't with a strong Russia as their partner. So it's in their best interest to weaken Russia. And also, in just the same breath, in the same timeline here, in the same week, we've seen now a surcharge, an uptick in tariffs, and a major trade war against China that Trump has announced, who is also the major partner of Iran. Do you see it that way too, or are we really just kind of seeing more of the Orson Welles rumors of war kind of being played out right before us?
Like the War of the Worlds. I think that, Israel, China, and Russia are allies. They might, they might have proxy war, or they might appear to be at war with each other, but at the end of the day, they're allies. During the Nixon administration, Nixon forged the technological links that sent our technology through Israel to Russia and to China. They were built up, and Russia in turn has helped kind of prop up Israel. And I think that they might play against each other in the theater, but I think at the end of the day they are actually working with each other on behalf of the syndicates. I don't think that they're individual players. I think they are playing a role on behalf of the syndicate. And while Trump is trying to impose tariffs on China, among the investors in his stablecoin is an investor from communist China. They were among his leading investors in a crypto summit he had shortly after his inauguration. So I think that the people around Trump, Lutnick, even Larry Fink, are heavily invested in China. They see that there's a lot of money to be made there. So I think that these strategies are being used for like a wider economic purpose. And I think the elites are running out of money. There's a liquidity problem because they've absorbed so much of our assets. We have like sovereign funds that are worth, in the billions of dollars. We have, I think BlackRock now is reported to be worth $13.5 trillion. So there's a liquidity problem. We have a problem with our pensions. There's not enough money for the pensions because a lot of that money has been stolen, taken out of the system. So we're dealing with, I think, an international money laundering problem, whereby the syndicate is their ultimate goal is to absorb as much money as they can, to buy up as much or as many of the assets around the world as they can, to claim the natural resources, and to establish a global monopoly on wealth and commerce. So I think everything else that they are doing is to that end. Go ahead.
So no, I was just thinking that's exactly what I was thinking. Is what we see now is the effort to make everything a buyer's market, so they could.
Correct.
You see it in California. I think that's the greatest example. Is you have the Chinese billionaires that are buying up land, buying houses, and sometimes they'll buy land, not doing anything with it, and it's driving the cost of living sky high. I think just alone in the Bay Area over there in San Francisco, it used to be a beautiful city. Now you have to walk around with a hazmat suit. But just for instance, I think just an average home is upwards of, well, let's see, about 5 million, 5 to 6 million. Right in Orange County, it's about 4.5 million. And now we're beginning to hear of breakings in the cracks of the housing market that's now stemming out of Florida. A lot of people went to Florida. So there seems to be some issues, and that's a tall tale sign. And so is Las Vegas, which was the major spearheaded crack in the system all the way back in 2008. And China couldn't be happier to be there to catch us as we fall as our owners. Which, by the way, you talk about money laundering. I've always wondered to myself, how in the world did all these Chinese people get in the donut making business everywhere in the Southland here? How the hell do they know about donuts? What do they know about making me a bear claw? Well, it's more than that. It's equivalent to what furniture stores are in the modern art movement, if you know what I mean, which is called money laundering. That's right.
Correct.
That's right. So here's what I like to do. We're going to take a quick break. And on the other side, I want to get into what I believe is a proxy war between Israel and China. I want to briefly touch upon that, but then lead into the Israel factor, which then will lead into infiltrators in the independent media, alternative media here, and what's happening with Jim Fetzer and yes, the big Sandy Hook question. So we're going to take this quick break here, Susan. We're going to put you in the timeout zone here. And excuse me here. Okay, so stand by right there. Here we go. And there we have it. All right. You are listening and watching, depending where you are, Late Night Thoughts, and hopefully you're understanding players here. But when we get back, we're really going to get into some very, very deep topics that I've been waiting for and dreaming about that. I don't even need notes, everybody. That's how big it is. So hold your hats. We're going to take this quick break and go back down to the old OK Corral. And I'll see you guys on the other side.
I live my street, I'm a guillotine. Put it away in my machine. Where have you been? I love you. Shooting stars in my left arm, I'm an alcohol low. Giving away time to Casio. The sun is slow. I still love you. Is this where I'm going to? We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I live my street, I'm a guillotine. Put it away in my machine. Sing what I mean. Love you. Is this where I'm going to? Is this where I'm going to? We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
And we are back. All right, welcome back, everybody. That was a little travel down that memory lane. I am still Dean Ryan, your cruise director, cruising with you to midnight and pretty much tomorrow morning. Yes, we do have a midnight buffet tonight on deck 12 and our karaoke session and the ping pong tournament. You know, that just reminded me of all that talking about Nixon and China, the ping pong diplomacy. Who remembers that one? And I think I should ask Susan if that was the diplomacy that made ping pong popular in America, because I was obsessed with that game. I mean, maybe just because I was always cruising. But anyways, welcome back to Late Night Thoughts here. And as we have a very intelligent Susan Bradford here tonight. And it's such a pleasure to have her on here with all of us here on the members only station here. And it's so refreshing to speak with someone who can really go back and forth with you in a flow of the same terminology. It's you know, it's almost like when you're an indoor dog or cat, and then you go to the dog park for the first time. You're like, oh my God, there's other people that look just like me. We're all sniffing each other. You know, it kind of reminds me of that. Let's welcome her back to the stage here. Susan, do you ever think of an analogy like that you'd be at a dog park with me? Isn't that something?
I didn't. I never anticipated that, but you know, there's always a first to everything.
Yes, it is. So, anyways, we're going to continue on here and talk about a bit about China, a bit of Israel, and all of that nature, and then we're going to talk about the big infiltrator of our current time here. I think you know who I'm talking about. But let's expand further. We were just to review. We were discussing BlackRock, Susan's new book, which by the way, I should be promoting. I do apologize. Susan's new book is called, I had it right here in front of me. Wait, don't tell me. Can I buy a vowel? Oh, here it is. Yeah, Susan's new book that's coming out, The BlackRock Bamboozle. And do we have a release date on that?
I don't have an exact date, but within about a few weeks.
Okay. Well, in a few weeks, and we want to excuse me, we definitely want to carry that in the store. And I hope I can get a signed copy. That's just me. That's just me. So I'm highly anticipated, critically acclaimed author that she is. So we were talking about all these things, but I wanted to expand a little bit on, the international scene here, because I see the war with Iran, the complicity of Donald Trump, or one of the Donald Trumps. We've seen so many different Donald Trumps. I'm not sure. I'm not sure when the last time I saw the real one. We see one with brown eyes. We see one who's tall. We see one who's looks a bit more ethnic than the last. Then we see a very young Trump who looks like a younger Lee Majors type. So there's a lot of theater going around. But one thing's for sure, the march to war seems to be prevalent, and whether it's real or not, there's some real pain and hurt due to these wars. Where do you see this going with Israel and the march to war with Iran, if I may ask, just right off the top?
I think they're desperate for money, and I think that war would unleash a lot of money for defense contracts. And I think Israel also, they want Gaza, they want to build their third temple. I don't see it happening. I think that Israel has lost the plot, but I think they are desperately trying to drum up war and trying to achieve their prophecy, that they've been planning for a number of decades.
Are you talking about the red heifer?
The red heifer is one of them. The
Okay,
sacrifice at the temple, and
when I heard about this red heifer, I almost fell out. I fell off my seat. I just couldn't believe that. It's the whole Revelation thing is just so mythical, that the fact that they had to pay some farmer John over there in Texas to dye his cow red is just so crazy to me. The red heifer, it's like Easter eggs all of a sudden. And but where do you see this too? And where do you see the Albert Pike angle to this? Because I have a lot of connects in the EU, and he tells me that majority of Europe, who, by the way, didn't want the displaced Jews after World War II to have to come in their cities, but currently all the leaders of the EU are more than happy to see mutual destruction of Iran and Israel. They both find them of a nuisance, and he also told me that a lot of these leaders are not only just into trannies, if not trannies themselves, but are annihilists too, and see the destruction of both as one major step to foiling the world's religions with this next catastrophic, war that they're pushing. Are you familiar with any of this? And Albert Pike in what his talkings and teachings were about?
in terms of the multiple war, the Civil War, then the World Wars and the Cold War. I
Right.
think I think the original European monarchs were established with a divine right to rule. So they they're depending upon which line of thought you follow. But one line is being promoted by the Merovingians is that there was an alleged Jesus bloodline and initiation that conferred legitimacy upon the European monarchs. And within China, there's a mandate to rule from the heavens. The Muslim leaders, claim to have descended from the Prophet Muhammad. So religion is a key element that is, required to confer legitimacy of power. I think that that the Rothschilds and the syndicate around them want to eradicate all religions, and then to essentially anoint themselves as the global leader or dictator that would potentially be ruled and governed by an AI. So they see religion as I guess very limiting. Like they replace God with technocracy, rational self-interest.
Right. Well, I think that's exactly what it is in the Industrial Revolution. during the times that we built all of these cities. It was a mechanism of control, and don't worry if you break your back. There's a place for you waiting after you're dead. And they use that to their advantage to build all of everything we see now. But now that they're done with us, and they did the pandemic, which many have said that it was sparked on with I believe it was Project Pogo or Project Zephyr. I can't imagine, but Zephyr, yes, it was. It was a gentleman named Goldberg. His last name was Goldberg, and then he died. And he said it was Israel who ignited what we see now, the pandemic, which I can see. And YouTube and a lot of these social medias have nothing been one big honeypot, so they know who's who and who believes in what. Do you see a proxy war of China and Israel? Because there was a major agreement between the two for a red rail system that ended terribly before the pandemic, and now since then China has now decided to do their own China. Was it the China Rail Initiative? The Belt and Road, I think that's what it was called.
The Belt and Road.
Yes.
I think initially, I think the idea was to have Israel serving at the center of the Belt and Road Initiative, kind of linking Europe and Asia and the Middle East. And then during the pandemic, and then actually during the 2008 crisis, and then the pandemic that followed, they got wind of the fact that we, meaning the syndicate who controls the U.S., we're not honest brokers. And I think that they're reluctant to deal with us. They're not allowing us to take advantage of them. So, for example, I don't know if you remember the Evergreen crisis, with the real estate crisis in China.
Oh yes, that's still ongoing, isn't it?
It is in part, and that was orchestrated by BlackRock and affiliated parties, and the goal was to build up. Well, they made a lot of promises to investors that they were going to acquire vast amounts of real estate paid for by debt, and the bubble burst, and BlackRock and a number of other companies were lined up to acquire the assets for pennies on the dollar, and China put a stop to it. So I think there's a lot of kind of bad blood between BlackRock, Israel, and China.
I agree, and that's why Iran is kind of the storefront of China. They're supplying them with weapons that are, they don't need to enrich uranium to have a nuke, which is very archaic. They have high tech. They have high tech weaponry to the point where early 2024, I'm sure you're aware that Iran was the first ever military to officially stake claim and put their flag over there in Antarctica, which is unheard of. But nobody would ever suspect Iran doing it. There's more to that. And then now here's what I see, and I'd love to get your comment on this, and then I want to get into the infiltration and certain people. But I want to get your take on this. Is I also see now Israel taking advantage of the anti-Semitic speech laws, but not just taking advantage of that, but using it to go into places like Canada and Australia, which has a strong, heavy footprint of China in these two countries in particular. And they're trying to make their way, and I believe they're trying to push China out. And this may be their way of doing it, because right now Australia just banned Candace Owens, believe it or not. For they said, well, because of her speech against Israel and yes, some of the Muslims too, or whatever. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because Canada has been the little baby Beijing for quite some time, but could they be now become baby Tel Aviv?
That makes a lot of sense. I think that as we've discussed, China was originally meant to be part of the program. The elites had planned to build up communist China and then to take over its markets and rule the world, or at least rule the commercial part of it from China. And I think China pushed back. And so I think Tel Aviv, which would be, the power that is kind of pushing for that agenda, is now finding that China is no longer a willing partner. So I think that does make sense that, Australia could become, like the mini Tel Aviv. That makes perfect sense.
It's going that way. And that's why I believe a lot of what we're seeing is Israel versus China, because, there was the rumor of the big asteroid that was going to be coming November 2020, which it did come, but, it was only 6 feet wide. I mean, what kind of asteroid is that? What a letdown.
It's very underwhelming.
Huge lackluster. But to the point of, they were saying destruction everywhere around the world, but the only two survivors. Well, what do you know? We're going to be China and Israel. What are the odds? And Israel holds the cable cords of the internet. Now China is vying for the control of the world's AI, which is going to totally overlap anything with the internet. That's why Israel did Project Pegasus, giving this technology to the cartels, who, by the way, are in Mexico. And now, what is the president of Mexico? She is a Jew. And I'm sure China is not happy with that. So we see this happening in 3 countries we mentioned already: Canada, Australia, and Mexico. And I believe Trump has pretty much, to the most part, eradicated the Chinese stronghold over America, getting rid of Huawei, which was huge. But in TikTok, I forgot. So I think we're seeing that.
Gave it to Ellison.
Yeah, more reasons why I never liked TikTok to begin with. But in this effort, they've taken over the mainstream media. But now we see something happening here in the alternative media, particularly Rumble and BitChute, where some of these voices that have been outcasted from the mainstream, such as a Jim Fetzer, we see some disruption happening right now. Let's talk about that. Now, you're an investigator. You want to explain your role and how you met Jim and all that stuff? How you met Jim Fetzer, and what you've experienced with that, and the Sandy Hook whole thing.
It's very interesting. I've known Jim for a number of years now, but my main relationship with him was merely appearing on his shows every now and then. Around January, one Victor Hugo Vaca Jr., the Maverick artist, began to attack Jim in social media. I mean, he's very vicious, defamatory, and quite abusive. I had sent him what I thought to be a very polite, conciliatory email, suggesting that maybe he try to reconcile with Jim and put their differences behind him in the interest of restoring peace. I thought it was wrong for him to abuse anybody, much less an 84-year-old man in that fashion. And that mere request prompted Vaca to then target me, and a number of other people have fallen into his crosshairs. But in terms of Sandy Hook, I've since I am a target, I am a target too. What we've discovered is that Vaca is not merely a troll on the internet. He appears to have been paid by interests aligned with Sandy Hook Promise, which have a vested interest in suppressing Jim's research on Sandy Hook, and ensuring that he does not successfully overappeal his Sandy Hook defamation judgment. And we find that these interests, aligned with Sandy Hook, they weave they're woven within the fabric of Rumble and BitChute, among different podcasters and networks.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about Rumble. And Jim's 84. Can you believe that? I don't think he's 84. I think he's much younger than that, but he's partied pretty hard. I think I've always thought about that about him. Yes, that's what that's how you explain it. Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, you should hear the stories that I know. But let's talk about this too. Okay, so Sandy Hook Promise brings Victor Hugo, and this audience is pretty familiar with that character. And I have been frozen at Rumble for about 2 years now, and the customer service can't seem to. They don't seem to know why, and I'm crazy. Yet you have a Victor Hugo, which is the greatest fake name ever, but he seems to be just growing leaps and bounds without any penalties. Why is that?
I think that is due to the fact, well, that BitChute and Rumble are not enforcing their own content terms of service to enforce unlawful free speech. But he also appears to be backed by very powerful players like I think it's Jeff Berwick, Max Egan, among a few others, and they have a vested interest in kind of sowing, division among the truth movement, and also kind of creating chaos and suppressing voices like Jim and yours, among others.
Yes, Jeff Burrick, and yeah, I believe he spoke in one of their conferences, which I spoke at a number of years ago myself. I was a keynote, which I'm happy to say and report. Me and Mike Adams, our speech, we were voted second best. We lost to Dr. Batar in, God rest his soul. So I'm happy with that. But oh, Susan, where'd you go? I think we lost you.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. Oh, that's better. I can now see you. Thought I lost you. I'm like, oh no, Victor got you. Okay, so Sandy Hook Promise. Now, there's this now claim. It seems like this bogus claim that Jim threw his case, and then Alex threw his case, and you want to maybe explain that, because there's also a Dan Bongino angle to this. And by the way, everybody, we're going to get to Susan. You have a lot of questions. You spurred a lot of questions of people. We're going to get to that towards the end here, but you want to talk about that angle too. I don't believe Jim. How does Jim throw his case when he has to go back to court? This is just all misinformation, and this guy's thrown the kitchen sink. But so yeah, you want to talk about that angle and what they're saying and claiming, and Dan Bongino's role in this too, if you could.
Oh, sure. It's a very tangled web, and I'll try to unravel it the best I can. So I don't think that they necessarily believe that they're alleging that he threw his case, but first, Alex Jones was thought to have thrown his case during his $1.5 billion defamation trial. Now, Alex Jones admits that his trial was coordinated and stage managed by HBO. HBO is a subsidiary of Discovery Time Warner, which is a corporate partner of Sandy Hook Promise. InfoWars, where Alex Jones is, the main host, is one of the most profitable and influential and most trafficked independent media sites in the country, and has launched a number of media careers, including that of Dan Bongino. During that case, Alex Jones, he conceded that he didn't research Sandy Hook. Therefore, he wasn't aware that he was spreading disinformation. He blamed his researchers. The researcher in question was Owen Schroyer. Owen Schroyer had relied upon Jim's book, Nobody Died at Sandy Hook, for his information. And so within the InfoWars ecosystem, Jim Fetzer was blamed for the existential crisis that Alex Jones was facing. And I think that they had to go into type of damage control, because Alex Jones was trying to appeal his defamation claim. At the same time, he was losing credibility amongst people who thought, his followers, who thought that he threw his case. And it's troubling for him to have to deal with Jim Fetzer, who is sticking to his guns and maintaining, what he believes to be the truth about Sandy Hook. Now, there are many different kind of players within this system. So after the Sandy Hook shooting, both the Democrats and the Republicans capitalized upon the shooting for their various political aims. The Democrats wanted to confiscate guns. The Republicans hyped the fears over losing their Second Amendment rights to sell guns. There were a number of contractors like Dan Bongino's friend and partner, Eric Prince of Blackwater, who tried to secure multi-million-dollar contracts securing the schools, from alleged or potential shooters. Dan Bongino, right after the shooting, Dan Bongino came forward to recommend that that governments, national and state governments, adopt a know the signs kind of doctrine, that you need to be able to recognize a potential shooter. That know the signs doctrine became the basis upon which Sandy Hook Promise was founded. Dan Bongino then, he leapt into the social media, first as a contributor to Alex Jones, amplifying Alex Jones' reporting on Sandy Hook. He then was able to jump over to the NRA, which was profiting off of or exploiting the Sandy Hook controversy for money, and to market guns, and to they were making millions of dollars off of concerns that their guns would be confiscated. Dan Bongino is now one of the leading investors in Rumble. He's also one of the most, or he was before he joined the FBI, one of the most followed and popular shows on Rumble. He's now deputy director of the FBI. His employer, which is the Department of Justice, is managing public funds for Sandy Hook Promise. Dan Bongino's partner in social media is Jeff Wernick. Jeff Wernick, in turn, is a key investor in BitChute. A number of his media partners for campaigns that he has launched in England and around the world are Sandy Hook. They're corporate partners of Sandy Hook Promise. So I think the connections between with Bongino and Wernick might account for why these platforms are not enforcing their contracts with regards to the hate speech being lodged against Jim Fetzer with regards to the Sandy Hook claims.
Sure. And yourself, if I might add, what has been done to you is egregious. And me too, but I'm used to it as, yeah. So myself, but Susan, and what I've discovered here is we're dealing with something that's more than just a guy who's angry at Jim and who's being paid by Sandy Hook Promise. This is bigger than Sandy Hook Promise, and I'm going to now tell the world, well, our members, of what's going on, and then there's something else coming. But let me share this with you. Is
okay.
I have me and a silent partner. We have discovered. We've had a eureka moment in a huge discovery of Victor Vodka Hugar Jr., whatever. And I'm going to tell you what that is here. And basically, and I'm going to read this to you. The following. We hired an international intelligence group to look into this character, because as you might know or may not know, Victor has also attacked Mike Adams pretty hardcore, but even more recently, the SGT report and people connected to it. And there was talks about having him extradited from Georgia, where he claims to be, the country of Georgia, back here to the U.S., because clearly he's overstaying right? Would you agree, overstaying his work visa if he even has one, or he's there illegally? It appears that way, right?
If we can establish that he's actually in Georgia. But yes, I agree that he has.
Okay, so let me tell you right now, he is in Georgia. He is in Georgia.
Okay.
He's at that beach that's in question, and he's not overstayed his visa whatsoever. He's in good standing. But let me tell you why that is. Ladies and gentlemen, what we've been dealing with here has been a continuation and a extended continuation of the compiling the media together, the takeover. We see it with Larry Ellison and CBS. I believe that's it, CBS, and there's a whole host of other ones. Well, they had to go after the voices that were left on the fringe elements of the internet, and that would be Rumble and BitChute, which I never use BitChute, but there are people there that do. Well, here's what we found out about Victor Vodka is that he's currently a contracted concerning. He's being contracted by the Siberian Security Agency, by the government over there.
Wow.
He's an arms dealer and has been retained as a security consultant since May 9th of 2024. He has been deployed to places like Astana, Kazakhstan, Istanbul, Turkey over there, for example, and most recently Batumi, Georgia, where he is said to be currently on the beach area. His business has been in Genio Beach, where he is, and appears to be unrelated to his primary responsibilities over there in Batumi, Georgia. He's also known banking interest with the ICE Bank over there in Turkey. And his responsibilities, he's connected to the Georgian mafia. Wow. Called the Kartuli Mafia. That focus appears to be predominantly on arms trafficking, which he's connected to. This association has connected Vodka to cells operating in Brighton Beach, Los Angeles, as well as Toronto, Canada. His most recent contacts in the past days have all been with Israeli nationals carrying dual citizenships, known to be members of the Abergil and Tansky syndicate, meaning Mossad. And if you think about Serbia, well, the Greater Israeli Project wants to garnish up Serbia and back into their new Israel, which is set to be Ukraine, Israel 2.0. They're willing to sacrifice the one we know now and make that the new one where they all come from, the Khazarians. That's why they want to go after, Russia and all these things. Finally, the operations he has over there in Batumi, Georgia, have recently come under scrutiny by Georgia's Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Central Criminal Police Department, in coordination with Interpol. He's under investigation by Interpol and Europol. Have been formal investigations that have included Mr. Vodka as it moves forward. In addition to that, Mr. Vodka has credible footprint with ranking elements of the dark web. Most recently, that is those focused on curtailing independent news moderators and who dispense what they deem as anti-Israeli government materials and broadcasts. That's his whole purpose. And he's on the dark web, which also explains why his so-called art looks like Podesta's art. Now, I can't go on the dark web, Susan, for security reasons, but there's a way to do it. And I bet if I did do it or found someone who could, that we would find things that are more than just trafficking of arms, meaning weapons, guns, but more like children. And he's in the right place to do it. Does this make sense now? You put this together?
It does.
He's Mossad.
It does,
he's a dual citizen. He's a dual citizen. So I want to, you know what that means, Susan? We have somebody here. We have somebody here.
Would that be
in fact,
Jim?
Oh my God, it is, ladies and gentlemen, it is Jim Fetzer. Let's bring him to the stage. Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Susan, I'm just delighted you're having this conversation with Dean. And of course, they just got the digits wrong, Dean. I'm actually 48.
I can't hear
Jim,
him.
that's what I've been saying. That you partied very hard, and I don't even think Susan really knows the truth about Jim. Jim's usually the MC on the weekends at the warehouse parties. You might have seen him. There he is. That's what he does, and I believe he was one of the Trump body doubles. Isn't that correct, Jim? At least last year you were. That's what we believe. That's just wonderful. So, Jim, do you want to comment on what we've been talking about here? Because you have been targeted, not just by the Dan Bonginos and Rumble shadow banning you, but Victor, do you want to comment on what I just shared with Susan? Who I think Susan's so floored right now, and I don't blame her. I was too. But you want to comment on this, Jim? Go ahead.
Yeah. I've not felt Victor could be that mature and responsible. I mean, you're talking about arms trafficking and the like. That requires someone who's very serious, capable, responsible. I'm finding this a bit ajar with what I take to be his actual character, intellect, and so forth. But it's fascinating, and I love you're having a conversation with Susan, who, as you're discovering, is very thorough and meticulous in her research and tackles the hard cases. Blackwater, Abramoff, most reporters and journalists won't go there. It's just too touchy, too risky, too loaded, too explosive. But there she is, right in the middle, sorting things out in her systematic, methodical fashion. I admire her work tremendously.
That's right, and I do too. And I feel like such an amateur, and that's a good thing, I think, to her credit. But go ahead, Susan. You want to comment on everything that you're witnessing, and why don't we all take some questions too from our wonderful night owls following this? Go ahead, Susan.
I wanted to also to tell Jim that I'm a great admirer of yours, as well, Jim. And you do tremendous work, and you're one of the few voices within the alternative media who has stood by the truth with principle, with courage, and I'm very, very appreciative for all that you've done. You're a national treasure. But in terms of Victor, I'm floored by this, and I think he would be capable. I know he is very irresponsible, but he has. I think I recall reading that he had worked with some type of Chinese criminal gang before he moved over to Georgia. So I think that he is capable of what you've described, and your description fits. It kind of fits what we're seeing with him.
Oh, look, when you're in a position where he was doing all this art with the modern art movement, that's always code for trafficking. He's playing a role of this kind of broke guy who's, he had to flee here. It's all an act. His whole mission statement is to divvy up the alternative media and the voices who are critical of Israel, and then have them libel themselves with all these new laws and get them in prison. And that's exactly what he's done with the son of Enos character out of Canada, who's now sitting in a jail cell. And that's what he's intending to do to people like Jim, myself. And but that makes me not want to back down, Jim. And that's why, I say very colorful things to him, because whether his stupid audience believes it or not, I want him to know that I know. And that's why when I come back, Jim, the gloves are off and everybody better get out of my way, because no one's going to stop me. Go ahead, Susan.
Well, I think that's why he throws a lot of nonsense at people, and then he demands that they come on his show to defend themselves, so he can acquire more dirt that he can twist and turn and potentially compromise that individual.
Right, like Norman, right, Jim? Norman went on the other night. This what's his name? The guy, the 9/11 revisionist guy.
Norman from 9/11 discussion thread, and I take it you and he hit it off, Dean. I think that's wonderful.
Susan, this is so crazy. One of Jim's most vocalist critics, for some reason, likes me. I don't get it. But
very likable.
He went on Victor. Yeah.
This is just Susan. This is just in relation to 9/11. He's Judy Wood supporter, and They all have an issue
Yeah,
with me because I've suggested Judy doesn't have things exactly right, and they're so dedicated to
right.
her. Anyone who questions Judy in the least way becomes a
And
big target.
and I'm trying to do a unification process behind the scenes and all that. He's actually a very nice guy. He doesn't say anything like Victor does towards Jim. It's very intellectual stuff, and I think there's hope at the end of the day. But this is very dangerous. You know what this guy has done is very dangerous. And let me tell you something else that our intel people told us is that they would have no problem like taking a guy out. You know, in this case. But they're very hesitant because he's highly connected. He's connected to the Mossad. He can call a hit on somebody. He's not. He's very capable, Jim, and that's one of the things you people underestimate with some of these guys is they play a role. Like what's his name, Dustin Nemos. He's playing a role. Yeah, he's playing a role. He's playing very much so playing a role, and Victor's checkered past, all these fake names. This is the Mossad now going after the alternative media. We have them going after Tucker and people like Candace, pretty hardcore. But now they're coming after Mike Adams, Jim Fetzer, myself. But can you imagine, Jim, if I relinquish this information hardcore in the general population? He might be essing bricks. I would if I were him and I knew I was coming. Right, Jim? Okay, so Susan, I know this is pretty outrageous, but why don't we take some questions? Are you good for some questions, Jim?
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, why don't we do this? And if I miss your question, everybody, I apologize for that. Okay, so let's get to this one here. I'm going all the way back here. We have Angelina Wolf, who says, hi, Angelina. She says exactly what I thought Trump wanted. Does he want to be the new Rothschild? Is that what his goal is?
He's actually a front man for the Rothschilds.
Okay, I got that. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I think he wants to make America the new Israel, Dean. I think the ambitions are enormous here. And these the expanding the anti-Semitism definition, I understand the no-hide laws have somehow been slipped into a bill, and those are anti-Christian laws, because the first of the no-hide laws is you cannot worship an idol, and they regard Christ on a cross, the symbol as an idol, and the consequence or the punishment for which is death. I mean, it's just incredible that this sort of thing should be taking place in the United States.
But you know what, Jim? Just because they may want to doesn't mean they can. And I think it's a great thing that they're even putting this into law so we could oppose it. And it actually wakes people up even further, you know, the fact that this is doubling down. But I hear you on that one. Here is another one here. We have Mr. Dave. Hello, Dave, asking, what is legit, though? Comey just flew off to China or something after getting back from Europe to make a pit stop in the States. Is he jet setting to China? I mean, yeah, where is Mr. Too Tall these days? Shouldn't he be in prison?
He should be. Also, I wanted to continue from the previous question. Larry Fink is the new Michael Milken, the junk bond king. He's Michael Milken rebranded. And I go into that in my book. And in terms of Comey, I really don't have any comment on that. I'm not sure.
Okay, Jim, you want to talk about Comey? I know you didn't like. You've never been a fan.
No, he's a sleazeball, but his latest moves I would be unable to decipher.
I guess I'm the only Comey fan. Okay, that's fine. All right, that's fine, Jim. Always singling me out. Okay, here we have a question for Susan. This is from Marnie Savick of Canada. She asked the following question for Susan: what are your thoughts on the narco state of Canada? Yeah, what are your thoughts on Canada? I've never learned so much about Canada. Just in the last 5 years alone. Do they have a fighting chance to survive the wave of Beijing and now the wave of Tel Aviv?
That's a good question. Now, the Prime Minister of Canada must swear his or her allegiance to the Crown. The Crown's controlled by Rothschild, and the the plan for corporate America and corporate North America to take over China was planned in Canada. So I think that they've really that country has sold itself out. Whether they can be saved, I hope they can, but they definitely need new leadership.
Yeah, I hear you on that, and I think it's going to come like England. I think it's going to have to come from militias
The
within.
people ground up.
Yeah, and sadly, it's going to have to come through arms trafficking of our own. See, this goes into what Victor's doing. It's not necessarily Victor making the contracts of the arms dealing, Jim. It's the Georgian mafia he's connected to that are doing the arms dealing, which is Mossad, and Mossad is shoveling weapons into Canada right now, into Toronto, as well as for some reason Northern California, which tells you they're getting ready for a violent revolution where they want to stomp not just China out, they want full control, as Jim mentioned earlier, as the little Israel that could, which we seem to be going down that route. We have the ET community. Yeah, are ET is going to save us? That's a good question for Marnie. Maybe. I think we're going to have that. Okay. Here is BlackRock trying to buy Ukraine? I think they are. Yeah, that's a given. Here's a great question too. I love this. Mr. Watland asked, "What is the role of the Vatican in new Pope? What are they going to play into?" That's a great question, Susan, because you saw the Pope of 1954 at the head of the signage and contracts of forming the EU, and to my knowledge is the only religious figure still that sits in the United Nations.
The Vatican has been controlled by the Rothschilds since the Napoleonic Wars. So, I think that they're working hand in hand. And I don't know if you follow Anna von Reitz, but what she has said is that when the Democratic Party is in control, the Vatican is in the driver's seat, and when the Republican Party is in control, it's the Crown, the former Holy Roman Empire. In the city of London. So they kind of trade off on government contracts, but both are controlled by Rothschild.
How do you like that, Jim? You cannot go anywhere without bumping into a Rothschild these days. And to your point too, as we saw Pope Leo just yesterday walking around with a white pale horse. They really want those revelation segments, don't they? Okay, there's one question there. Here is another one. Mr. Wallen continues to ask, Asians are being converted in droves to Catholicism, reference Charlie Kirk in South Korea. That is kind of weird. Even Newt Gingrich became a Catholic. And as a cafeteria Catholic myself, I'm not sure I feel good about Newt Gingrich and anywhere near my church. But why do you think that is? Does anyone have any ideas?
Oh, I'm personally a Protestant, and I hope I don't offend anybody. But
that's offensive.
The country was the country, United States, was founded by Protestants, and we believed in having a personal relationship with Jesus without a third party intermediary like the Pope. And I think the call to have to convert people to Catholicism is to solidify the power of the Pope or the influence of the Pope, because I believe that the Catholics must answer to him, at least in principle.
But Susan, why is it the Catholics, the priests, why are they the only ones that can do the exorcist? And in particular, a young priest and an old priest. What is it about that?
That's a very good question. I think that's a very good question. I'm not really sure I have a good answer.
Which, by the way, Jim, I think I just thought of our new Halloween costume, Jim. Jim should be the older priest and I'll be the young priest. We can recreate that scene for Halloween specials coming up here. Okay, here is another one here. And did you want to, this is Marnie again asking, is Sandy Hook Promise considered an NGO? Who wants to answer that one?
Jim, what do you think? I think it's
Are they considered a NGO as a non-gay organization? Are they considered that, Jim?
Non-government, of course, yeah. I'm sure they
I stand
are.
corrected. I stand corrected.
I'm sure they are, Dean. I mean, and they make. I've been informed by my San Diego friends they're still pulling in $1 million a month from gullible Americans who think it was real. $1 million a month, and that's why they're upset with me. And if my case is reversed, they might have their gravy train cut off, which was why they brought in Victor to take me down a peg. So whatever happens in my case, no one's going to care because he's succeeded in destroying my public persona.
Speaking of which, too, and I'm going to get Susan, I'm going to get your take on what Jim said, too. In addition to this, Victor was bashing Jim on Christopher Key's just show a couple of weeks ago. When you add that to your statement, Susan, because, no matter which way you slice it, Dustin Nemos and Victor Hugo have at least one thing in common. All of their adversaries they seem to be targeting are all Israeli critical. So it goes right into the intel report I shared with everyone. But Susan, go ahead.
It's very interesting. I wanted to point out that a number of the corporate partners of Sandy Hook Promise are government contractors. Some of them are government-sponsored human trafficking, involved in government-sponsored human trafficking operations as well. I didn't watch the Christopher Key's show with Vaca, but I understand that that Christopher Keyes has since come to understand who Vaca is and is acting accordingly.
I thought that guy was a complete idiot. He was told not to go on there. He had Jim on his show. He didn't even listen to Jim. I think he's a waste of energy and space. I think Jim would agree with me, but he probably can't do it publicly.
Wait. You don't mean Christopher Key, because he and I have now done several shows together, and Susan's absolutely right. He's repudiated Victor Hugo.
He was told not to go on there, Jim, and then he had you on his show, and he kept talking over you. You had to get very angry. I mean, Jim, I almost punched my TV screen out. That's how angry I got. I just don't like to see that. I don't think he has any business conducting a show or anyway.
Since that show, we did one on Charlie Kirk that's got over 40,000 views, and we're doing another about Butler this weekend. So Christopher and I are actually in sync, and I think Victor's unhappy that he lost out. And he actually went on the air and said, "Gee, look at this." Victor goes on with Fetzer, and he gets. Then it was, I think, 28,000 views. That was the one about him, whereas he was only getting 450. So he was very upset and complaining about it.
Now that you bring up Charlie Kirk, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up with Susan, who's very in tune and very astute to it all. Susan, do you want to weigh in on the Charlie Kirk just tragedy? Just a terrible tragedy. He was shot by a tranny rifleman who ran through the woods with an engraved rifle and a incredible magic bullet. I want to talk about the political violence in this country. I can't take it anymore, Jim.
Dean, it was all staged. I mean, you got to know that, right?
Jim, what about the families? How could you say that? Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, I think I'm not. I don't know that I'm necessarily qualified to weigh in on that, because there's so much conflicting information. There appear to be multiple women playing the wife. My sense is that Charlie Kirk knew that his days were numbered. He was getting on in age, in his 30s. I think he was too old to debate, young college kids. And I think he was becoming a little too outspoken on Israel. And he probably realized that he can't continue because he would lose support, and maybe he agreed. And I don't know, this is a theory, but maybe he agreed to, if this wasn't backstage, to take a hit to then retire in some kind of honor.
Wow, multiple wives, Jim. You want to talk about the multiple Erica Kirks? Is that something you truly believe? I mean, just because we saw two different women playing his wife as the widow, and one looked like Juliana Huff from Dancing with the Stars, as Jim and I discovered, which we were delighted to discover that. Jim, you want to talk about where we stand? Because I'm at the point now, Jim, where I'm not even sure if Charlie Kirk was even a real person, because that was the exact name from the Snake Eyes movie with Nicolas Cage. And in closing, Jim, we've yet to see his parents anywhere.
I think it was in Snake Eyes. I think it was Kirk's son. It wasn't exactly the same, but it was very close. And of course, the shooter was a Tyler. The bad guy was a Tyler, and it all happened on 10 September. So you're making good points out of the film as some kind of predictive programming. He sold his house, I don't know, about a year ago for a good sum, I think around $6.5 million. It appears this was set up for him to make an escape, as it were, to an undisclosed location, which a couple of parties have referred to as Valhalla, but she is taking over, and Trump just gave her what I take was the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and she announced that Charlie had been planning to run for president, Dean.
Oh, Jim, she even slipped up more. The new actress who's playing the wife, and said that Charlie, she was reminiscing about something of old, and said that he was enjoying his day. He was enjoying a Saturday. He was enjoying his Sabbath on a Saturday. And you know what that means, Jim?
That would mean he was Jewish.
Well, yes, you nailed it. So that could be the case. And I also think he was a CIA guy too, because his parents are nowhere to be found. I'm looking for the parents. No siblings. Nobody asked. And then Susan, who holds a football arena like eulogy funeral thing, like within days? You know what I mean? What the hell was that?
Yeah, with the flames, and it was like a worldwide wrestling federation.
Oh my God! And then Kiss was playing. It was just so crazy. Everything, just incredible. But which one?
Oh yeah, don't forget the satanic hand sign too.
The satanic hand signs. Jeez, Jim. Okay, so we've reached that point now. We've reached that point, and yes, Mr. Watling, he was converting to Catholicism. Yeah, he was. I'm not sure why. I was raised Catholic, 8 years of Catholic school, Jim. I mean, it's every Sunday having to go to Mass was the most boringest time of my life. Like when I went to church, it was at a period when we had the older priests. They would fall asleep during their own sermons. That's how boring it was. And
was the Mass still in Latin when you were a kid, Dean, or they'd already?
Well, it wasn't that long ago, but no, it wasn't. But I just missed that boat, and the nuns didn't hit us. But it was just, I don't understand why would people convert. Anyways, Jim, thank you for joining Susan and I, and I'll say goodbye to you backstage if you happen to be here. And there's a lot of people who are very much in tune, Jim, to your fight. And do you know when the Court of Appeals date is for you?
It could be any time, Dean. I think it will happen this year. So they're within a few months. I do believe they'll issue their rulings on 4 different appeals within that time.
There you have it. And what a surprise, Susan. I didn't even know Jim was planning on doing this. It's just comes and goes. You just never know. But thank you very much, Jim Fetzer, everybody, and we'll see him soon. All right, there you have it. Okay, let's now kind of consolidate our time here, just like they're doing to the media. Susan, you can catch Susan's new book, her wonderful new book. I might add, it's just not any book. It's the Black Rock Bamboozle, which is going to reveal everything you heard here tonight and a whole lot more. You want to make sure you catch that. That comes out in a few weeks, and we'll be broadcasting that to all of our viewers all over the world when it does, and get a signed copy of that. And you can also get her Royal Blood Lies and Deep States, the Shadow Dragon, which I definitely want to read. And Susan, what's the best way our viewers can follow you who are hearing this right now?
They're welcome to follow me on my Substack. You can look for Susan Bradford. Unfortunately, my last few posts have been devoted to the vodka situation, but soon I'll be returning to proper substantive news, to provide kind of deep insights into the deep state.
Absolutely. So you could catch her there on Substack, and I'm sure she's highly involved in what Jim's doing, and I see it all the time. So thank you for being here, and it was a real pleasure.
Thank you for having
I
me.
know our viewers are very engaged to what we're discovering here together. Thank you so much, Susan Bradford, everybody. Okay, and I'll say goodbye to you backstage. Well, everybody, that kind of puts a very heartwarming conclusion to our wonderful night here at Late Night Thoughts. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. You are the members, you are the night owls that make things go round. So for Jim Fetzer and for Susan Bradford, I want to thank all of you, as I'm Dean Ryan saying good night. And always remember to stay tuned, and always remember to stay awake. Good night, everybody.